Have you ever felt like the world is moving too fast and you just want to step back and breathe? Like everyone around you is chasing something you cannot quite understand, while you find yourself questioning if any of it really matters? Maybe people have told you that you are pessimistic or even depressed when you look at the endless cycle of ambition and stress that surrounds us and feel nothing but emptiness. What if I told you that this feeling, this way of seeing through the illusions that captivate others, is not a sign of depression, but actually the awakening of ancient wisdom that has been flowing through humanity for over 2,000 years? What you are experiencing might not be a mental health crisis, but the natural emergence of Taoist consciousness in a world that has forgotten how to live in harmony with the flow of existence. The ancient Chinese philosophy of Taoism teaches us that what modern society often labels as depression or negativity is frequently just clarity. When you see through the artificial importance that people place on material success, social status, and constant productivity, you are not being negative. You are beginning to see reality as it truly is. The great Taoist sage Lao Tzu wrote in the Tao Te Ching that the wise person does not strive, yet nothing is left undone. This seems contradictory to our achievement-oriented culture, but it points to a profound truth about the nature of authentic living. When you feel disconnected from the frantic pace of modern life, when you question whether climbing the corporate ladder or accumulating possessions will bring true fulfillment, you are not broken. You are beginning to understand what Taoists call Wu Wei, the art of effortless action that flows in harmony with the natural order of things. Think about how you feel when you are in nature, perhaps sitting by a river or walking through a forest. There is something about the way water flows around rocks, the way trees grow toward the light without forcing themselves, the way animals live completely present in each moment without worrying about tomorrow or regretting yesterday. This natural way of being is what Taoism points us toward, and when you feel more at peace in these environments than in the artificial constructs of human society, you are not experiencing depression. You are recognizing your true nature calling you home to a more authentic way of living. The feeling of not fitting into a world obsessed with constant motion, endless goals, and perpetual dissatisfaction is not a personal failing. It is wisdom recognizing that much of what passes for normal in our society is actually a departure from the balanced, flowing way of existence that our ancestors understood intuitively. The modern world has created a culture where being busy is equated with being important, where constant stimulation is mistaken for aliveness, and where the accumulation of experiences and possessions is confused with genuine fulfillment. When you find yourself naturally resistant to this way of living, when the thought of another networking event makes you feel drained before you even arrive, when you prefer a quiet evening of reflection to a night of socializing and entertainment, you are not antisocial or depressed. You are responding to the deep wisdom within you that recognizes the difference between authentic nourishment and empty calories for the soul. The Taoist masters understood that true contentment comes not from filling our lives with more activities, relationships, and achievements, but from creating space for the natural intelligence of life to express itself through us. Consider how different your life would be if you trusted that your natural rhythms and inclinations were not obstacles to overcome, but guidance to follow. What if your need for solitude is not isolation, but incubation? What if your resistance to superficial conversations is not social anxiety, but a longing for genuine connection? What if your questioning of societal values is not cynicism, but the emergence of discernment? The path of Taoism invites us to see these tendencies not as problems to be fixed, but as wisdom to be honored. When we begin to understand our own nature through this lens, everything changes. We stop trying to force ourselves into molds that were never designed for our unique expression, and we start to discover the profound peace that comes from living in alignment with who we truly are. Let me share with you 7 profound realizations that reveal how what you might think is depression could actually be the emergence of Taoist consciousness within you. These insights will help you understand that your way of seeing the world is not a problem to be fixed, but a gift to be honored and cultivated. Before we explore these deeper truths, I want to ask you something that might resonate in your heart. Have you ever felt like you are the only one who sees how exhausting it is to constantly chase things that do not bring lasting peace? Like you are surrounded by people running in circles while you just want to sit still and understand what life is actually about? If this speaks to your experience, I would love for you to share in the comments below by writing simply, "I am ready to understand my true nature." Your words might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today, And sharing your experience helps create a community of people who are awakening to the deeper wisdom that flows beneath the surface of our busy world. 1. You naturally resist the illusion of constant striving. In our culture, there is an unspoken belief that you should always be working toward the next goal, the next achievement, the next level of success. When you find yourself feeling exhausted by this endless pursuit, when the thought of climbing another mountain just to see another mountain feels meaningless, you are not being lazy or depressed. You are recognizing what Taoists call the futility of forcing life to conform to your desires. The Tao Te Ching teaches that those who flow as life flows know they need no other force. When you feel resistance to the constant pressure to do more, be more, have more, you are actually aligning with the ancient wisdom that understands true fulfillment comes not from acquisition, but from acceptance of what already is. This is not giving up or lacking ambition. This is recognizing that peace and contentment cannot be achieved through external means, but must be cultivated from within, through harmony with the natural rhythm of existence. The ancient Taoist master Chuang Tzu illustrated this principle through the story of a butcher who could carve an entire ox without dulling his knife because he worked with the natural structure of the animal, rather than against it. When you stop forcing outcomes and start flowing with the natural patterns of your life, you discover that accomplishment becomes effortless and sustainable. 2. You see through the emptiness of social validation. Perhaps you have noticed that the things most people get excited about, the achievements they celebrate, the recognition they crave, all feel hollow to you. While others chase likes on social media, promotions at work, or approval from people whose opinions do not truly matter, you find yourself questioning why any of this should bring lasting happiness. This perspective, which others might label as cynical or depressive, is actually profound insight into the temporary nature of all external validation. Taoism teaches that those who seek fulfillment through the opinions of others will never find stable ground because external approval is like the wind, constantly changing direction. When you naturally withdraw from the need for constant validation, when you find more peace in solitude than in social performance, you are not isolating yourself out of depression. You are discovering what the Taoist masters called the treasure of simplicity, the recognition that authentic self-worth comes from alignment with your true nature rather than from the fluctuating opinions of others. The wise person, according to Lao Tzu, is not concerned with being known by others, but with knowing themselves. This inner knowing becomes a source of unshakable confidence that no external circumstance can diminish. 3. You intuitively understand the wisdom of non-action. In a world that glorifies busyness, that measures worth by productivity, that believes every moment must be filled with activity or accomplishment, you may find yourself drawn to stillness. When you prefer sitting quietly to constant entertainment, when you choose reflection over reaction, when you find more wisdom in listening than in speaking, you are not being passive or withdrawn. You are practicing what Taoists call Wu Wei, which is often translated as non-action, but more accurately means action that is in harmony with the natural flow of life. This is not inaction born from depression or lack of motivation. This is the profound understanding that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is nothing at all, allowing solutions to emerge naturally rather than forcing outcomes through excessive effort. The ancient masters understood that the river carves the canyon not through force, but through patient, persistent flow. And when you find yourself naturally embodying this patient approach to life, you are accessing wisdom that our hurried culture has forgotten. Wu Wei teaches us that there is a time for action and a time for stillness, and wisdom lies in knowing the difference. When you honor your need for contemplation and reflection, you are not avoiding life but preparing yourself to engage with it more skillfully. 4. You recognize the impermanence of all worldly pleasures. While others chase experiences, possessions, and achievements believing these will bring lasting happiness, you may have noticed that all pleasures are temporary. The excitement of a new purchase fades. The high of an achievement passes. The thrill of a new relationship eventually settles into routine. Rather than seeing this recognition as pessimistic, understand that you are perceiving one of the fundamental truths that Buddhism and Taoism have taught for millennia. The Tao Te Ching reminds us that all things under heaven are born from being, and being is born from non-being. When you see through the temporary nature of worldly pleasures, when you stop expecting external circumstances to provide lasting fulfillment, you are not becoming depressed. You are developing the kind of clear seeing that allows you to find the permanent within the impermanent, the eternal within the temporal. This understanding naturally leads to a more stable kind of contentment that does not depend on circumstances aligning with your preferences. The Taoist sage finds joy not in the acquisition of things, but in the recognition of the unchanging awareness that witnesses all changing phenomena. This shift in perspective transforms your relationship with both pleasure and pain, allowing you to experience life fully without being enslaved by the constant pursuit of favorable conditions. 5. You feel called to live in harmony with natural cycles. Perhaps you have noticed that you feel more energized in certain seasons, that your creativity flows better at particular times of day, that you need periods of withdrawal and solitude balanced with times of engagement and activity. In a culture that expects constant productivity regardless of natural rhythms, this cyclical way of being can feel like a personal flaw. But Taoism teaches that everything in nature moves in cycles. The moon waxes and wanes, the seasons change, the tide ebbs and flows, and humans are not separate from this natural order. When you honor your need for rest, when you respect the times when your energy is low, when you allow yourself to flow with your natural rhythms rather than forcing yourself to maintain artificial consistency, you are not being undisciplined. You are living in accordance with the Tao, the natural way that governs all of existence. The ancient Chinese understood that trying to maintain the same energy and output throughout all seasons is like expecting a tree to bloom in winter. It goes against the fundamental patterns that sustain life. When you embrace your cyclical nature, you discover that periods of apparent inactivity are actually times of deep regeneration and preparation for the next phase of growth and expression. 6. You are naturally drawn to simplicity over complexity. In a world that celebrates accumulation and complication, you may find yourself gravitating towards simpler ways of living. When you prefer a few meaningful possessions over many trivial ones, when you choose depth over breadth in your relationships and interests, when you find more satisfaction in basic pleasures than in elaborate entertainments, you are embodying what Taoists call the virtue of simplicity. Lao Tzu taught that in pursuit of knowledge, every day something is added, but in pursuit of wisdom, every day something is dropped. Your natural inclination toward minimalism and essentialism is not a sign of depression or lack of ambition, but recognition of what truly matters. The Taoist path reveals that complexity often obscures, rather than illuminates, that the accumulation of possessions and experiences can become a burden rather than a blessing. When you find joy in simple moments, when you appreciate the beauty of an uncluttered space, when you prefer authentic connection over superficial networking, you are discovering the freedom that comes from knowing the difference between what you need and what the world tells you that you should want. 7. You understand that true strength comes from flexibility and adaptation. While the culture around you may value rigid determination and forceful persistence, you may have discovered that the most effective approach to challenges is often yielding and adapting rather than pushing and forcing. This insight aligns perfectly with one of the central teachings of Taoism, that water is the softest thing in the world, yet nothing surpasses it in overcoming the hard and strong. When you find yourself naturally choosing collaboration over competition, when you prefer to work with circumstances rather than against them, when you instinctively seek win-win solutions rather than zero-sum victories, you are embodying the Taoist principle that true power comes from alignment with natural forces rather than opposition to them. Your preference for harmony over conflict, your ability to see multiple perspectives rather than insisting on being right, your willingness to change course when circumstances shift, these are not signs of weakness, but expressions of the deepest wisdom. The bamboo survives the storm not because it is stronger than the oak, but because it bends without breaking, and your natural flexibility is a tremendous asset in navigating the uncertainties and challenges of life. The path of Taoist living is not about changing yourself to fit into a world that has lost its connection to natural wisdom. It is about recognizing that your way of seeing, your need for stillness, your resistance to artificial striving, your understanding of impermanence, your desire to live in harmony with natural cycles, your appreciation for simplicity, and your preference for flexible strength over rigid force are not symptoms of depression, but signs of awakening consciousness. The great Taoist master Chuang Tzu told a story about a man who was so ugly that men would flee at the sight of him, yet women found him irresistibly attractive because of the beauty of his character. The point of this story is that what appears undesirable on the surface may contain profound wisdom and beauty that can only be recognized by those who see beyond superficial appearances. Your sensitivity to the emptiness of material pursuits, your preference for depth over surface engagement, your natural inclination toward reflection and contemplation. These are not personality flaws to be corrected, but gifts to be cultivated. In ancient China, the people who possessed these qualities were often the ones who became hermits, sages, poets, and philosophers. They were the ones who preserved and transmitted the wisdom that allowed their culture to thrive for thousands of years. They understood something that our modern world has forgotten, that true strength comes from flexibility, that real power emerges from alignment with natural forces rather than opposition to them, and that the deepest fulfillment arises from acceptance of what is rather than insistence on what should be. When you feel like you do not belong in a world obsessed with speed, competition, and accumulation, remember that you are not the problem. The problem is a culture that has disconnected itself from the timeless wisdom that your heart recognizes instinctively. Your task is not to force yourself to find meaning in things that feel meaningless, but to trust the deeper knowing that guides you toward a more authentic way of living. This might mean making choices that others do not understand, setting boundaries that seem strange to people caught up in the mainstream narrative, and finding fulfillment in simplicity while others chase complexity. The Tao Te Ching teaches us that the soft overcomes the hard, the gentle overcomes the rigid, and the humble overcomes the proud. In a world that values aggression, rigidity, and pride, your natural inclination toward gentleness, flexibility, and humility may seem like weakness. But the Taoist understanding reveals that these qualities are actually expressions of the most fundamental power in the universe, the power that allows water to carve through stone, that enables the wind to move mountains grain by grain, and that permits life to persist and flourish despite all obstacles. Living as a Taoist in the modern world requires courage, not the courage to fight against the current, but the courage to trust in the wisdom of flowing with it. It means having the confidence to move slowly in a fast world, to speak softly in a loud culture, and to find strength in surrender rather than in struggle. This is not about becoming passive or withdrawn from life, but about engaging with life from a place of deep centeredness and authentic presence. The ancient masters understood that those who are truly powerful do not need to display their power, those who are truly wise do not need to prove their intelligence, and those who are truly fulfilled do not need to convince others of their happiness. When you stop trying to fit into molds that were never designed for your unique way of being, when you honor the rhythm of your own nature rather than forcing yourself to dance to someone else's music, you begin to embody the kind of effortless authenticity that the Tao points us toward. This authenticity becomes a beacon for others who are also seeking a more genuine way of living, and your example gives them permission to embrace their own natural wisdom rather than conforming to artificial expectations. The journey of recognizing your Taoist nature is not about perfection or reaching some final destination. It is about returning to the simplicity and naturalness that have always been your birthright. It is about remembering that you are not separate from the intelligence that moves the stars, grows the trees, and beats your heart. When you align with this recognition, life becomes less of a struggle and more of a dance, less of a battle to be won, and more of a river to be navigated with skill and grace. As we come to the end of this exploration, I want you to consider the possibility that what you have been calling depression or negativity might actually be the first stirrings of an ancient wisdom awakening within you. The dissatisfaction you feel with superficial pursuits, the peace you find in solitude, the resistance you experience toward artificial striving, these are not symptoms of a problem, but signs that your soul recognizes truth when it encounters it. The path of the Tao is not about becoming someone different, but about remembering who you have always been beneath the layers of conditioning and expectation. If this understanding resonates with something deep within you, if you feel a recognition of your own experience, in these words, I invite you to join our community of seekers who are learning to live in harmony with the natural way. By subscribing to this channel, you become part of a growing family of individuals who understand that true wisdom often appears as foolishness to a world that has lost its way, and that the gentlest path often requires the greatest courage. Together, we explore the timeless teachings that help us navigate modern life with ancient wisdom, finding peace in chaos, strength in softness, and fulfillment in the simple recognition of our connection to the eternal flow that moves through all things. Your journey of awakening does not have to be a solitary one, and your unique perspective is exactly what this community needs. Please like this video if it has helped you see your own nature more clearly, And remember that what others might call your weakness may actually be your greatest strength, waiting to be understood and embraced.